that the value of an experience is equal to its potency. You can have a very potent experience and you may not enjoy it, but if you have the tenacity to dig through that and lean into it and be with it, you can find that that's some of the best environment for growth that there is. And life is so, for me, focused on the experience of it all, not so much what specifically it is, just that it is something, and that that it all kind of translates as to why we're here. Is like to experience these things.
So here we are today with none other than Mr. Chris Salvato. Chris, man, so glad to have you here. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cam. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So for everyone out there listening, Chris here is the original founder of Weird Music, going all the way back to the Scarlet and Grey cafe days here in Columbus. And he also runs Weird Music Studios, Sweetheart Productions. He's one of the partners behind the Summit Music Hall. And yeah, just a wealth of knowledge on, going from being a hobbyist to really what it takes to become an artist, and, building his own brands as a venue owner, as a producer. So yeah, Chris, really glad to have you here to pick your brain about, everything, and everything in between everything. So Chris, man, I think a really cool way to start this off would just be to talk about, from your subjective point of view, some of the things you admire most about your favorite artists, whether that's with their musical approach, their approach to their brand, whatever that might be. Like, I'd love to hear some of the things about your favorite artists that you just admire the most.
Okay. Thanks. That's a great question and a deep one indeed. I think what does it for me the most, for some of the artists that immediately popped in my head when I think of my so-called favorites, which changes a lot, to be fair. I'm very flippant, and I'm very much like a song of the moment kind of guy. And that being said, it all comes back to me, to what satisfies something that has no replacement. So there's certain artists that I really love, and they're all like this to a degree, but it's just people that hold their unique creative space extremely well, and they have a certain way of making music that is unique to them, and it can manifest in all kinds of different sounds. It doesn't necessarily have to sound like any one thing, but it's just about their unique dynamic creativity, and what sets them apart from other people. What differentiates an artist is what makes me like them the most. Why are they different? That's what really piques my interest.
Can you talk to me about some of the other things that you think are differences between the majority of professional artists, professional musicians, and then some that you think are just legends, like the best of all time, and what you think are some of the commonalities that are true for the greatest of the greats that distinguishes them from most else?
So the word greatness. Okay, I want to dig in on what is the word greatness in the first place. What does greatness mean? Because there's really good sounding music. There's very successful people with a lot of fans. None of that really constitutes greatness to me. Greatness has something to do with the impact. It's something about with the ability to direct emotional energy, and it doesn't have to be a specific kind of emotional energy either. It's about connecting with the place that the music is coming from, and having the wherewithal and the power to bring someone else to that state of being. That's what I think the greatness comes from. That's, to me, is great. And it's a special ability. It's a special muscle that some great artists have. Like when they're on the stage, it's almost like they're looking into a gigantic mirror and they're all just one thing. And the way that they look at that audience is the way that they would look at themselves in the mirror, and that they have that ability to connect with them in such a powerful way as a result. I think that's what defines an artist's greatness. And that can happen at a small stage, or it can happen at Wembley Stadium, at Live Aid. it's happened all over. It happens all the time. It happens everywhere. It's a beautiful thing. That's greatness to me.
Do examples come to mind?
I think the Grateful Dead were a great band. They had this ability to transport people to exactly where they were. It's about presence, right? I think Freddie Mercury was great when I'm talking about specifically that ability to see the crowd as a mirror and to just unify people. That's fantastic. Bob Marley, what a fantastic force of unification. What a powerful person that is. Gosh, man. At the Summit, sometimes I can't tell you how many times as a venue owner, right? I mean, it's my job to put on concerts, and some of my favorite shows have been to just me. Okay, so here's a specific example. There's a gentleman named John Shannon. He is the front man for a band called Leaders of the Shift. He used to just go by the Shift. And John has a pretty storied career as like a session guitar player and a jazz guitar player, and he's toured all over the world with very acclaimed musicians. So is the rest of his band, the Rhythm Section too. It was only me. I can remember standing in the middle of the floor at Scarlet Grey Cafe with my jaw wide open like this and my arms out, and I'm just like, oh my God. It's just the best power trio I've ever seen. And they were just pouring it all out there. And it was like hard rock, it just made me feel so energized and just so amped and so incredible. Ended up doing so many shows with those people, and they were never wildly successful or anything. Maybe we would get 100 people to come out after a few years of doing it, but they became some of my best friends too. I mean, I really cherish and appreciate those guys and what they had done, even though they were completely unknown as that iteration of them as musicians. That was great. What a great band. Great band. Never heard of them.
One thing I love talking about on this podcast is how principles that apply to music definitely apply to so many other things. If you could boil, the uniqueness and then what you just classified that would define greatness, like if you could distill that into some sort of simple, concrete advice applicable to really any form of art, how might you kind of summarize what you just took us through?
It's about presence. If you want to say hello to somebody, make them feel greeted. Make them feel that you're there to say hello. It's that simple. That's great. It's about a way of doing something, and that's as it applies to music. That way of doing something is applicable to anything you do.
I dig that. Chris, I want to take a special moment here. We're giving the first ever Weird Music podcast mid-episode shout. This is not paid promotion. We've got a good friend named Mario Spumoni with his demon sweat here. I don't know if my camera's reversed here. Say what's up.
What's up, demon sweat?
Anyways, huge shout out to Mario. This man, homegrown, some homemade, incredible hot sauce. Weird Music Podcast. We love Mario. This dude is a local legend. And these are very limited edition. So they don't exist for you to purchase. But if you ever find yourself with the ability to obtain one of these magical spicy elixirs, take it from me, pull the trigger. Big shout out to Mario. All right,
Super Mario. That's our guy. We love him.
Back to my questions here. So jumping just a little bit to the side, you with all professionally that you have going on, I'd love to hear you talk about something that you don't do, that you stay away from doing, that you think allows you to be successful.
Oh, goodness gracious. What do I avoid? Oh, goodness gracious. That is an interesting topic. And, the first thing that really comes to mind about my philosophy on avoidance is I avoid avoidance. Really. I'm partial to chewy food, if you will, if you can take that metaphor. I'm partial to a difficult experience from which I can draw a lot of value. I have this sort of idiom that I kind of remind myself of, and that is that for me at least, and maybe you could poke some holes in this philosophy, but that the value of an experience is equal to its potency. So you could have a very potent experience and you may not enjoy it a lot. There's a lot of things that are potent that are not necessarily enjoyable. But if you have the tenacity to dig through that and lean into it and be with it, you can find that that's some of the best environment for growth that there is. And, life is so, for me, focused on the experience of it all. Not so much what specifically it is, just that it is something, and that, that it all kind of translates as to why we're here, is like to experience these things. And, it's not just all the same. But it's all equally valuable. I can't say that, this thing that I enjoy is better than this thing that I don't enjoy, just because I have that subjective opinion on it. It all exists, and I didn't have anything to do with its creation exactly. So, I mean, who am I to judge the value of an experience based on whether or not I like it? That's a lot easier to say than to actually be that way. Of course, I shy away from stuff all the time, but if I'm coming from it from a purely philosophical standpoint, that's kind of how I feel about it. I would prefer not to avoid things and sort of make do with them. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you don't have control over all of that all the time.
So it almost sounds like a combination of you staying away from resistance and perfectionism a little bit.
Well, that's a nice insight. Yeah, I think that I would avoid resistance. I would avoid perfectionism too. But hey, if I ever got something totally perfect, I would be pretty happy. I would accept that.
Well, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Just want to let y'all know we've got these hand-dyed, ice-dyed Weird Music Podcast hoodies and also tees. If you'd like one, let us know. We'd love to get you one. Also want to give a big shout out to Voodoo Ranger from New Belgium Brewing for sponsoring this podcast. And a big thank you to the geniuses over at Thrax CBD for sponsoring us with their amazing products. Also want to give a big thank you to J&J Distribution, Ohio's premier Delta 8 and CBD wholesale supplier. Retailers, check out their brands Cloud 8, Compassionate Buds, and Zaza. Also, big thank you to our local print shop, Franklinton Press. Definitely hit them up for any of your custom merch or custom printing needs. They'll take good care of you. Got links in the description. And yeah, much love, y'all. Now back to the episode.
What does growth and improvement look like for Chris Salvato?
Well, these days, growth and improvement is going to the gym. I'm waking up early every day. I'm jumping out of bed. I call it a joob, J-O-O-B, jump out of bed. I write it down on my list of things to do every day.
I love that.
It's about, it's about what I just talked about. It's about greeting the unpleasant with enthusiasm. It's about accepting the challenges and the shortcomings that I have as my very own things to chew on, that chewy food that's good for you. Yeah, man, it's the same stuff. It's all that good presence. It's all that good being here. It's all that good acceptance. But yeah, I mean, focusing on doing my homework, focusing on exercise, focusing on eating healthy, health is wealth. So yeah, recently I've been doing all those kind of things. That's been my growth recently. Yeah.
I feel like you're someone, well, let me not be naive. I know you're someone who has experienced quite a bit of like really cool spiritual psychedelic experiences in your life, the range of them. And I think one thing that is so cool when you kind of venture into these territories, and you and I have kind of discussed this here and there, the possibility of there being this unseen kind of spiritual world underlying everything. And like music to a degree is this like unseen force that affects us. And I think it'd be really cool to go down the rabbit hole here, like with what you've experienced in your life, and in the past as it relates to spiritual, psychedelic, energetic kind of, does the world really work this way? Wait, What? I'd love to hear in the past, like any kinds of experiences you've had that have opened your eyes to this kind of thing.
Okay. You want me to talk about experiences I've had that have opened my eyes to, what are we calling that? The underlying mechanics of our consciousness and our relationship to reality. Is that sort of what we're touching on? I mean,
It's hard to put a name on it. On my
Sure.
questionnaire here, I have a list of questions. I called it the unseen spiritual world underlying everything.
The unseen spiritual world underlying everything. Goodness gracious. My experiences. Well, it's sort of paradoxical in a sense, in the sense that if you are to put yourself in a very confused and, let's just in all realistic terms, if you're poisoning yourself and just messing yourself all the way up,
all the way up,
and you're confusing your senses, and your usual indicators of reality are askew, and it's very impactful to do this because you're left to make your judgment of reality off of a felt sense of what is real.
Mm-hmm.
So the external stimuli ceases to be your guide for your course of action. You are left to determine your course of action from what you can depend on, which is your own experience, which is often your emotional experience, what's happening inside of your body, on the energetic level, what you feel in your heart, the way that your sort of auric energy relates to the thoughts that you have. And especially if you are to continue this way of being for any extended period of time, then you learn to really depend on it, and you learn to test the relationship between your mind and your heart and your energy and the experiences that you have, depending on how you relate to that sense of self. It's not something that I would have much success describing, rather than just calling it learning to be who you are. What you are. I think who you are has this sort of indication of, it's just a hard question to answer. Who am I? It's even kind of harder. It's like, what am I? And it's this it implies this sense of other. In order to answer that, you must separate yourself from yourself, right? So it's like just being is essentially, and it's the same thing as just meditation. You just learn to come into yourself and just be. And that's so simple. You don't need psychedelics to do that. You don't need anything to do that. You just need to calm down for a second and just be. It's just being. I think that's the most profound thing that we could ever achieve, is to just be, to let go of everything else that you want or desire or see or think, shed it all, and being is what connects you to the unseen spiritual world. I think, if I had to, since you asked.
With people having transcendent experiences, seeing like otherworldly visions, people meet elves on DMT, people may talk to past loved ones on mushrooms, people may just have crazy dreams. People may have visions in meditation that bring them to tears. And it's like, with this occurrence, this phenomena, do you feel like in your experiences of these kinds of things that there's something science can't explain about really how the world works and what makes us us? And like, basically what I'm asking is, do these kinds of transcendent experiences have deeper implications about life?
Sure. Okay. I can take a stab. I can get into the territory here. And I think that the first thing that I would like to talk about, I guess, is symbols and the way that we I sort of use archetypes. And again, it's about like, what's deeply programmed inside of us, I think, inside of our like much deeper levels of our most basic ability to comprehend things. I think that our psyche uses archetypes and symbols and things like that. And whenever you are in like a deeply psychedelic state and what we talked about is happening, it's not necessarily your external world anymore that is your guide. You're still finding ways to categorize and experience things in a way that you can make sense of and draw a narrative from or to, right? So I think it's interesting, and I think that maybe I don't know if science is the right tool. If you get the most value of looking at these things through a scientific lens, you may even look at it through a poetic or literary lens, and find it to be more applicable and useful that way. To look at the symbols of your experience and just decipher what they mean and what they have meant to others. It could be very subjective, I mean, and we're talking about a very cloudy area here, people's psychedelic experiences and how it relates to the science of it all and what it actually means. Like, what is the reality of our strange subjective experiences? I think the reality is that they are strange and subjective, and sort of it is sort of up for interpretation to the best of your ability.
If you don't mind me asking, do you ever feel some type of way? Do you ever feel anxious or even excited about the concept of afterlife?
I would like to think that it's nothing at all, that it's just a very, I don't know. I've read this thing recently that I kind of liked it. It's about ego death. And it says, if you die before you die, you don't die when you die. I can relay this. I hung out with my grandmother while she was dying of cancer on her deathbed. And this is what we talked about. She said, well, what do you think happens when you die? And my answer was that I think that the boundaries of self begin to dissolve. And I believe that you regain your connection with that source of consciousness from where you came. I think it's sort of a molting of the sense of self, the small ego that we use as a tool in our lives to separate ourselves. It's a molting of that, and it's a rebirth of the truer sense of self, the truer ego that connects us with everything. We have a small ego that separates us from everything, and we have an oversoul kind of ego, sense of self identity that connects us. And this is kind of like, if you die before you die, you don't die when you die, right? So it's like, if you find a way to achieve that connection with that grander sense of self, that ego that connects you with everything rather than separates you from everything in life, then when you pass away and you shed that ego, then have you really changed?
There's like a light bulb in my head connecting this to your first answer about like kind of emotional transference and how you, as a fan getting moved by a performance, you kind of you get engrossed by the performer's emotions, by their presence, by what they're it's almost like you're simulating another self or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the connection, but my brain is somehow connecting what you just said to the feeling of just like getting rocked by leaders of the shift. You know what I mean? Like, would you say that there could somehow be like a commonality between this ego death experience? Like, you see the kind of the cherry stems I'm trying to twist with my tongue here?
Sure. Do you feel it? It's that unifying state of being. it's reaching deeper than your individual self, and pulling that out. And then it's just the state where, you know, you're just connected with every, you know, it's like, it's just, you identify with that self that connects you. A great musician is very good at that, in my opinion. And you can connect over any kind of number of things, you know. It's transcendent and it's unifying. And yeah, I think the more you experience that in life, the more likely you are to experience that in death.
Mm. Well, Chris, man, so glad to have you on here. Round of applause for Chris Salvato. Everything you do for so many music fans, so many aspiring musicians, myself, like, you know, putting down paths in front of people. And you're kind of like a musical servant to us here in Columbus, like bringing us all these, you know, joyous connections. And man, thank you for everything. Thank you for coming on this show and taking these questions in stride, man. Really, really appreciate you for all of the above.
Thank you, Cam. I appreciate you too, man.
So if you listen this far, thank you for tuning in. Got links in the description. Check out Weird Music Studios, where Chris is recording this right now. Fucking Chris, like Dopapod, Papadocio, Lettuce, like the list goes on. All these guys have come and been at the studio. Tropidelic, you had The Voice there. So any musicians out there, you know, looking for a studio connection, Central Ohio rehearsal spot, whatever that might be, a producer, they got many different genres of producers in the studio that Chris owns, Weird Music Studios. And yeah, link in the description to get in touch with them. And the Summit Music Hall's upcoming show calendar, got a link for that as well. And yeah, starting to wrap up, Chris. Just got a couple more questions for you here.
Yeah, man.
As a thought experiment, what do you think you 10 years from now would say to yourself?
I would probably tell myself, like, you know, like secrets and stuff, like, invest in this stock, dude. Just do it. No one's gonna know. It's fine. I don't know. You know.
Well, that would be valuable advice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I would just try to help myself. I don't know exactly how. I don't know. The true answer is I can't conceive of myself being that old.
If you have to think back to all the knucklehead advice and little bits of wisdom you've received throughout your days, what would you say is the piece of advice that sticks with you the most as, you know, being something worth following that's been given to you?
Oh, this one is it's pretty easy. It's that good humor, good nature, and compassion are to be celebrated more than achievement.
Fucking awesome, Chris, man.
Yeah, dude. Thank you, man. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, dude.
I mean, my gratitude from the deepest place of presence. Like you are someone, if I think of everyone I know, you are someone who has poured your life into generosity, like true generosity, more than anyone else I can really think of, honestly. And just like, yeah, let's make something great for everyone. Like that is a vibe from you, I guess, so hard, man. And like, I can give you whatever compliments, but I just got to say that on air, like fucking Chris Salvato, that motherfucker. Shout out to the universe for making you, man.
Peace. Hell yeah. We're all in this together, everybody. Let's do it. Let's do it up good. Let's do it right. I love you guys.